Former Vice President Mike Pence Monday chided former President Trump over his assertion that he could end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours, arguing that doing so would mean giving in to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Pence, who was running against Trump for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination, was asked on Fox News how he believes the war in Ukraine will end. "I think it ends by giving the Ukrainians what they need to win," he said. "I mean, there's some talk. My former running mate likes to talk about solving it in a day. The only way you'd solve this war in a day is if you give Vladimir Putin what he wanted." Pence, who has previously criticized Trump for praising Putin, warned that the Russian leader would likely move into neighboring countries if he was able to overtake Ukraine, pointing to Lithuania, Estonia, or Latvia. And those will be countries where we'd have to send our armed forces to go and fight under our NATO treaty, Pence said. And so I think it's in the interest of our country to give them what they need to stop them there, repel them there, and make no mistake about it, it's the most effective way to send a message to China that America and the West will not tolerate military aggression by Russia or by China to redraw international lines by force. Trump has repeatedly claimed, since Russia first invaded Ukraine in February 2022, that he would be able to bring the conflict to an end within a day, though he has not detailed how he would do so. He has argued the U.S. should not play such a significant role in sending military aid to Ukraine to fight off Russian forces. Pence, who met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine late last month, has emerged as perhaps the most outspoken GOP presidential candidate in favor of providing support for the Ukrainians. He has argued that while it is not America's war, the fight in Ukraine is part of a broader struggle for freedom abroad that is in U.S. interest. He has been critical of the Biden administration for the pacing of providing military equipment to Ukraine to fight Russian forces. The pacing. So, I'm someone who tries to be honest with regard to my assessment to these candidates, and I've said before that Pence is pretty much worse than Trump in almost every conceivable way. He's actually much scarier to me as someone who would conceivably win a presidential election, because I think if he ran against Biden, he'd be able to trick enough people into thinking that he's a normal guy with his kind of soft-spoken tone and higher use of vocabulary words that people would find impressive, and they'd forget a lot about his desire to take America back to the dark ages in terms of social issues and just his general warmongering. But I have to admit, he's right that one of my favorite subs, Jem, said that if Biden was serious about trying to end the conflict in Ukraine, he would try to get Ukraine to, alongside Russia, call for a ceasefire, and then neither side would get all of what they wanted, but there would still be some kind of talks that would end with a compromise. But when you're talking about someone who says, in 24 hours, a conflict that has been going on for over a year will be ended, they have no plan. And the article points out he's made no mention of his actual stated efforts to make anything work out in a different way than what we're already getting. So I'm unfortunately having to agree with Pence. Now, as far as do I think were Russia to overtake Ukraine, would they go to other countries? I mean, there's a lot of history between Russia and Ukraine, and I think Putin's using that as his argument for why he believes the conflict is justified. I lean towards no, however, because I think he knows the UN is really not playing when it comes to other countries. So if he gets out of his hemisphere, he's going to be in for a world of hurt. But it's something that I'm sure could conceivably happen. It's just kind of funny that Biden's been criticized for giving too much money to Ukraine by a lot of different conservative, even some left-wing people. And I think those criticisms have degrees of validity to them and are something that people should have more discussions about. But then he also gets criticized for the speed of his contributions to but that's what happens when you're a warmonger like Pence. You want the U.S. involved everywhere. And it's like, it's so interesting how foreign policy on the presidential side for the Republicans has been really just kind of like everything is awful. I mean, I remember with the 2016 race, I really liked Rand because his beliefs on those issues tended to align with my own. but if you look at Ukraine by itself, you have Trump baselessly claiming that he's capable of ending this year-long conflict in 24 hours. You have Haley talking about the evils of China, her and that Vivek guy. DeSantis calling the war in Ukraine a territorial dispute. It's like Pence, ironically enough, has a position on this that is more aligned with mine in the sense of there should be a compromise. You shouldn't give Putin everything he wants, but I don't trust him, along with any of pretty much any of the other uh, Republican candidates, to actually have a nuanced view of this and try to resolve it as peacefully as they can. I think they're just too much on the side of Ukraine, like to a degree that I think is going to get more Americans killed and more American money wasted. Um, so, like I said, in this particular instance, he's right, but it's kind of like the lesser of two evils is right about the other evil being more insane, where you can't really compliment either side.